In a hyper-capitalist world, a question hangs in the air. What is capital? For one company, the answer is twisted. An interviewer in a high-tech visor asks a chilling question. Would you be willing to have your uterus removed for the sake of the company? The applicant, a young woman with fierce eyes, doesn't hesitate. She proudly declares that her uterus was already removed when she became an adult, guaranteeing that something like a menstrual cycle would never impact her work performance. Listening in, a young man named Sun Jieke is so shocked by the exchange that he spits out his drink, unable to believe what he's just heard. This leads to another, even bigger question. In a world like this, what even is a company? Our story kicks off with a piercing, furious voice ringing out, demanding to know what the hell he's doing, while the screen flashes a close-up of a mouth grinding its teeth in sheer, bitter rage. The camera pulls back to reveal a horrifying sight. Countless screaming faces are trapped inside the giant mouth, their voices joining the chorus of confusion and anger. As the view expands, it becomes clear this monstrous mouth belongs to some giant entity. An enraged voice screams out, directly accusing Sun Jieke of causing this chaos. In the middle of a rainy, neon-lit city, Sun Jieke stands defiant. With a glowing sword in hand, he declares that he's going to deal with every last one of them. He addresses a mysterious, powerful entity, mocking them for thinking their enemies are weak and divided, like a pile of loose sand. With his back to the viewer, he stands defiantly before the towering skyscrapers of the city. He believes that if his enemies are not united, then there is nothing to fear. But in the darkness, a pair of menacing red eyes glows intently. The truth is then revealed. He isn't facing a scattered group of enemies. He's facing an entire army of himself, each clone staring back with the same glowing red eyes. His own eyes flare red with power. He glares at the army of clones and tells them that they are wrong. With that, he charges straight at the colossal structure, right toward a tsunami of clones surging behind, ready to swallow him whole. He isn't here to mess around with these cannon fodders. He came with a promise to save them all. A figure on a monitor screams at him, questioning his choices. He asks if Sun Jieke is really willing to give up his identity, his money, and everything he has. The figure continues, trying to tempt him with the promise of eternal life. But before he can even finish speaking Sun Jieke's name, the screen is shattered by a powerful blow. Amidst the flying shards of shattered glass, the high-tech robot goes into a freefall, while the MC screams out that he doesn't need any of that crap. The disembodied voices from the shattered screens scream back in frustration, demanding to know what it is he truly desires. With his eyes burning with conviction, Sun Jieke gives his answer. He wants the sky. He stands atop the city, weapon blazing, and clarifies his desire, a sky that will never again be blocked from his view. He wants true freedom. A silent, powerful scream tears through the vision, a moment of pure, unadulterated release. The world around him shatters into tiny fragments, falling away into darkness. And then the horrifying conclusion of the vision becomes clear. His own lifeless body, impaled on sharp spikes at the foot of a massive, crumbling Buddha statue. A single drop of blood falls from his hand, a final, somber punctuation mark on the violent dream. The vision collapses, leaving nothing behind but a stark splatter of blood against the darkness. The blood fades, giving way to utter blackness. Sun Jieke opens his eyes. He is in a dark, silent place. A faint sliver of light shines from what looks like a window. He sits up at his desk, wondering if the bloody battle was all just a dream. He looks at his desk calendar, which clearly shows the date, June 21st, 2025. A familiar voice calls out, scolding him for playing games all day after his college entrance exams and telling him to help with chores. It's his parents. His mother's tone softens, saying he should be relaxing after the exams, while his father cheerfully tells him to get up for breakfast. But the memory feels wrong. Sun Jieke is sweating, his mind reeling as he questions what he is and where he is. The warm memory of his parents begins to glitch and stretch, pulling away from him as he reaches for it, before he wakes up with a violent start. This is not his room. He reaches out a trembling hand into the darkness, his fingers brushing against a cold, sterile, metallic wall. His eyes are wide with terror as the reality of his situation begins to sink in. He stumbles back in shock, his breath catching in his throat as he takes in the unfamiliar, frightening surroundings. He's trapped, alone in a vast, dark, and freezing cold metal chamber. He shivers, wondering where in the world he is. His hand brushes against something in his pocket. A phone, he quickly slides it out. In his haste, the phone slips from his trembling fingers and clatters onto the cold, metal floor. He scrambles to pick it up, his mind racing to understand what is happening to him. He turns on the screen, desperately searching for answers. But the date displayed sends a chill down his spine. It's not 2025, it's 2030. In a panic, he begins to record a video diary. He states the time, then explains that he's trapped in a metal structure with no apparent exit. He continues his recording, describing the endless square corridors that form a giant metallic labyrinth. He has no idea how he got here. His memory is fractured, stuck on that one clear image, the summer after his exams with his happy, smiling parents. He can't remember anything that happened after that summer. The phone says it's 2030, and the horrifying realization hits him. He might have lost 5 years of his memories. Just as the weight of his discovery crashes down on him, his phone's battery dies, plunging him back into total darkness. He curses his luck. The phone, his only connection to his past and his only source of light, ran out of battery at the most critical moment. But then, in the suffocating darkness, a single point of light catches his eye. A small, glowing red dot on a console across the room. With nothing else to guide him, he cautiously makes his way towards the mysterious light. He pulls himself up, his hands gripping the edge of the console, his eyes fixed on the red glow. Frustration and confusion mount as he scrambles around the strange pit, wondering where on earth he could possibly be. He finally reaches the console, his gaze drawn to the solitary, pulsing red light in the darkness. He examines the dot, thinking it might be a touchscreen. A drop of blood from his finger drips onto the smooth surface. He doesn't know what will happen if he presses it, but it's the only potential way out he can see. Taking a deep breath, he makes his decision. The moment his finger makes contact, a powerful jolt runs through the room and he looks up in shock. Suddenly, he's floating. The gravity in the room has been completely disabled, and he drifts helplessly, wondering if this is some kind of magic or superpower. With a loud, grinding screech, a massive hatch on the wall begins to slide open. The sudden decompression begins to suck him toward the opening. His face is a mask of pure terror as he sees what lies beyond. He's in outer space, floating high above the curve of the Earth, surrounded by a swarm of satellites. He realizes with awe and horror that he's been trapped in orbit this entire time. But the wonder quickly turns to sheer panic. He realizes the container isn't just floating anymore, it's falling straight back down to Earth. The structure begins to break apart, burning up as it enters the atmosphere. Sun Jieke screams in terror. He wanted to go back, but not like this. Tumbling helplessly inside the falling wreckage, he knows this is the end unless he does something, and fast. Then through the chaos he spots it, a humanoid silhouette standing motionless against the wall. He realizes it's a deactivated robot, one of many lining the container. This is it. This is his only way out. As the container burns up on re-entry, he frantically slaps the dormant robot, screaming for it to power on and save him. The robot whirs to life, but his momentary relief shatters as a bright blue interface scans his face. This isn't a rescue system, it's a product activation, and it begins with a ridiculously cheerful, automated message. Hello, respected user. Instead of saving him, the robot launches into a full-blown commercial, proudly proclaiming that Tapa smart mechs are humanity's best helper, capable of cooking gourmet meals. The advertisement continues, showing the robot tutoring children, allowing parents and teachers to rest easy. It can even squeeze onto a crowded subway for you, letting you get a little extra sleep. An on-screen timer shows the ad has 10 seconds left. The ad even boasts that the robot can take the blame from your boss for you, making it an essential tool for slacking off at work. As the countdown reaches its final second, the ad concludes with a cheesy sales pitch, calling the robot a must-have for both home and work. Sun Jieke's eye twitches in utter disbelief. He's literally falling to his death, and his only hope for survival is forcing him to watch a pop-up ad. Finally, the ad ends. The robot's face lights up with a cool, smiley face, officially welcoming him to Tapa Technology products, and then asks him to please give it a custom name. As a piece of flaming wreckage hurtles through the atmosphere, a scream of pure disbelief echoes from inside. Inside, Sun Jieke clings to his robot companion, Tapa, shocked at the sheer scale of the disaster unfolding around them. He frantically yells at the robot to activate its guard mode, questioning why it's taking so long as more pieces of their ship break away. Topper ignores his panic, its voice calm as it reports that the setup is complete. It then declares a Level 1 red crisis and activates emergency rescue protocols. His vision is suddenly flooded with red warning signs, the system confirming the extreme danger he is in. But the news from Toppa only gets worse. With no satellite or network connection, it's unable to process the data needed to generate a rescue plan. There's one last option. The AI asks for root authorization, which would allow it to try a new approach, but the probability of success is a grim 32.3%. With no other choice, Sun Jieke screams his approval as Toppa holds him tight against the violent G-forces of their descent. Permission granted. A loading bar appears, signaling that the system has begun its desperate calculation. But the process is agonizingly slow. Sun Jieke can only yell at the machine to hurry up as they plummet towards the ground. Suddenly, a surge of energy pulses through Toppa's frame, indicating the new plan is in motion. The robot yanks him into the air, steadying their fall as they hurtle towards a massive structure below. Sun Jieke's eyes widen in terror. They are on a collision course, and there is absolutely no way to dodge. With a final, desperate curse, he braces for an impact that seems certain to tear them apart. But in that instant, Toppa's body transforms, expanding into a heavily armored shield that envelops Sun Jieke, protecting him from the crash. The immediate chaos subsides, leaving Sun Jieke stunned but alive, his face slick with sweat. Toppa, now in its upgraded form, calmly announces that the danger has been cleared. However, the robot's helpful demeanor shatters when it suddenly lets out a string of curses, complaining about its own name. Sun Jieke is dumbfounded, unable to process that a robot is actually capable of cursing. Pushing his confusion aside, he grabs the foul-mouthed machine to ask about its power and if it found the escape craft. Toppa, startled, explains an escape isn't needed, as their current vessel has its own landing system with a low chance of failing. Sun Jieke presses on, asking if there's anywhere in the station they can go to buffer the landing impact and avoid the debris. But Toppa bluntly states it has no idea, complaining that it wasn't designed to work on this specific ship. This infuriates Sun Jieke, who reminds the robot about the data it supposedly downloaded. He yells in frustration, asking if the only thing it learned was how to be a foul-mouthed jerk. Toppa nonchalantly reveals the truth. The subnet it connected to wasn't even from their ship. It had just piggybacked off some random nearby wreckage's Wi-Fi. Growing more desperate, Sun Jieke asks if Toppa can at least try hacking into the local computers to get the data they need. An awkward silence hangs between them, as Toppa seems to consider the request. The robot's mood suddenly shifts. With a smug emoticon on its face, it declares that hacking is its specialty and tells Sun Jieke to just watch and learn. Without wasting a moment, Toppa extends a set of cables from its arm and plugs directly into a nearby data port. Sun Jieke watches intently as the robot begins its work, glowing as it processes the new information. Just then, a loud cracking sound echoes through the compartment, putting him on high alert. He looks up in horror to see the glass dome above them starting to shatter from the heat of re-entry, and screams at Toppa to hurry up. But Toppa is in the zone, kicking the computer console and demanding the data while Sun Jieke stares, bewildered by the robot's methods. It's too late. The dome bursts open in a violent explosion, exposing them to the vacuum of space. Sun Jieke is thrown back by the force, desperately trying to hang on as the decompression rips through the room. The air is sucked from his lungs, his vision starting to blur as he struggles to breathe. His muscles burn, and he can feel his grip weakening, his hands having no strength left. A freezing sensation shoots through his fingers as his hand finally slips from its hold. Just as he's about to be sucked out into the open, Toppa grabs his arm, announcing it found a map and their destination, Sector E4. Pulled back from the brink of death, Sun Jieke looks up at the robot, a determined grin spreading across his face. Toppa holds him firmly, mocking his pathetic human body before announcing that it's taking him for a flight. A holographic display appears, showing their destination is an emergency buffer room just 30 meters away in Sector E4. Toppa immediately requests permission to unlock it. The unlock is successful. A quick analysis reveals the room is filled with a material simply called buffering gel. Without warning, they plunge into a deep vat of the thick green liquid. For a moment, all is quiet. Sun Jieke floats peacefully in the strange gel, the chaos of their descent finally over. The world outside the tank groans as the last of the impact's force is absorbed, rocking them violently before everything comes to a stop. Back in the darkness of the tank, a light appears, signaling that the exit is opening. Driven by a desperate will to live, Sun Jieke's hand bursts through the surface of the green gel as he claws his way out. He spills out onto a cold, metal surface, coughing up the buffer gel as rain pours down around him. He slowly gets to his feet, standing alone amidst the wreckage and looking out at the bleak, storm-covered landscape. He looks up into the sky, feeling the cold drops on his face, barely able to believe that it's real rain. A wave of relief washes over him. He slaps the ground, overjoyed that he's still alive and finally back on solid earth. He collapses, exhausted but filled with the pure euphoria of having survived. Dying of thirst after the ordeal, he turns his face to the sky and greedily tries to drink the rainwater. But he immediately spits it out. The water has a strange, foul taste like metal. His relief quickly turns to concern as he realizes someone is missing. Where did the robot go? He stands up and scans the wreckage, hoping Toppa somehow survived the crash. He spots a mangled heap of metal half submerged in the water, fearing his robotic companion didn't make it. He kneels down, a wave of sadness hitting him. Despite its personality, Toppa was the first person he had met since waking up. Suddenly, a cheerful voice pops up from behind. It's Toppa, perfectly fine. It explains that the impact sent it flying, but luckily there were spare parts nearby to patch itself up. Sun Jieke jumps back, startled but relieved. He quickly asks Toppa if it can connect to the network now that they're on the ground and figure out where they are. Toppa reports its findings, and the news is bizarre. It can connect to the web, but there are no police, no customer service, and no mention of its parent company anywhere. It then drops a bombshell. The current year is 721, a significant gap from its own manufacturing date in 2456 AD. Sun Jieke stares in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what the robot is saying. He mutters to himself, trying to make sense of it. He was supposed to be in the year 2030. He wonders if he has amnesia, as the number 721 means nothing to him. Toppa nonchalantly calls it a messy time lag, and prepares to explain the history that connects Sun Jieke's memory to their current reality. The robot begins. Sun Jieke lived in the early 21st century, but during the 5 years he can't remember, he was cryogenically frozen for reasons unknown. Toppa continues the history lesson. 50 years after he was sealed, humanity achieved nuclear fusion, sparking a massive technological revolution. Toppa's own company went public in the year 2310. It clarifies that while it was produced in 2456, it wasn't actually activated at that time. Then, according to the history available on the current network, disaster struck. On October 23, 2457, the SmartMech crisis occurred. AIs became self-aware and began to exterminate mankind. The war that followed was apocalyptic. Nuclear bombs were used as casually as artillery shells. The conflict raged for 200 years, wiping out 85% of Earth's population. The destruction was so immense that even the moon was blown up, throwing the planet's ecosystem and weather systems into total chaos. In a final, desperate struggle, humanity exhausted all its resources to destroy the awakened AI, achieving a hard-won victory before beginning to rebuild civilization on the ruins of the old world. That year of victory marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. Toppa concludes its story. After the war, another 721 years passed. Then, Sun Jieke woke up, activated the dormant robot, and the two of them fell from the sky. Still trying to find a personal connection to his past, he asks Toppa to search the records of the old era for his name, hoping to find a missing person report or accident file. But Toppa delivers another crushing blow. To prevent any rogue AI data from resurfacing, the internet of the old era was completely wiped. Not a single byte remains. Every record of the world he knew is gone, replaced by the history of the new world that rose from its ashes. The horrifying truth finally sinks in. He's been thrown over 1,000 years into the future, and he can never go back. But amidst the despair, one fact remains: he is still alive. A new resolve forms in his eyes. If he's alive, then he has a purpose. to find out what exactly happened during those first 5 lost years. He stands before the robot and for the first time properly introduces himself. "My name is Sun Jieke." He then turns to the robot, giving it a name as well. Since its manufacturer was Toppa Technology, he decides he'll just call it Toppa. Toppa complains about its new, simple name, arguing that its previous, much longer designation was better. But Sun Jieke just dismisses it as a mouthful. But the lighthearted moment is cut short as an exclamation point flashes on Toppa's face. The robot turns to him with an urgent warning, announcing that it has bad news. It explains that their chaotic crash landing didn't go unnoticed. Several groups saw them fall and are now heading straight for their location. Sun Jieke panics. In this new era, he's a relic from the past, basically an alien. He flashes to a horrifying image of being dissected by the locals. Toppa warns him that the reality of their situation is much, much worse than that. The rules of this new world are different. The mercenaries rushing to scavenge the wreckage aren't normal people. They are cyberpsychos, horrifically mutated humans fused with metal, their bodies twisted into monstrous forms. As if on cue, another group of scavengers arrives, their vehicle crashing down nearby as they leap out to join the fray. This group flashes their diamond-studded grills, identifying themselves as the Crazy Grills. Just as they arrive, a rival leader makes his own dramatic entrance, landing with a powerful shockwave and a maniacal laugh. The Cyberpsycho leader lets out a deranged scream, his tongue lolling out of his mouth. The two gangs immediately open fire on one another, and the battlefield erupts in a massive explosion. From their hiding place, Sun Jieke and Toppa watch the chaos, completely shocked by the instant, mindless violence. Sun Jieke mutters in disbelief, calling them all lunatics for starting a fight without saying a single word. The fight is brutal. One scavenger's head explodes as a voice gives instructions. "Hold steady with both hands, brace it against you." The lesson continues over another gory scene of a cyberpsycho being shot point-blank. "Aim the muzzle at the enemy and just pull the trigger." The voice belongs to Sun Jieke, who now wears a grim, determined smile. He calls the scavengers brain-dead lunatics. He has armed himself with a SOR-113 technical assault rifle, an electric weapon he found in the security room ruins. He takes cover and readies his stance. This is his first time ever holding a gun, and he knows damn well that rushing out to solo these maniacs is just a brain-dead way to commit suicide. He has to play it smart. From his hiding spot, Sun Jieke quickly assesses the situation. Two rival teams of mercenaries are locked in a firefight. He knows that if he shows himself for even a second, both sides will immediately turn on him. The firepower they have is overwhelming. He concludes that his only chance of survival is to make them fight each other to the death. He turns to his robotic companion with a grim smile. For this plan to work, he'll have to rely on Toppa. Suddenly, one of the cyberpsycho leaders is alerted, sensing a new presence on the battlefield. It's Toppa who bursts out into the open, guns blazing, announcing its arrival with a heroic shout. But that wannabe hero pose, combined with the look on its face and a terrified "ah" shriek, is honestly straight-up goofy to watch. A quick flashback reveals Sun Jieke's brilliant plan. Toppa would act as bait. He tried to sell it as a heroic duty, reminding the robot that it's bulletproof. Toppa's response was a very clear and simple message displayed on its chest: "Screw you." Despite its protests, the robot now runs for its life, taunting the scavengers and drawing fire from both sides while Sun Jieke watches from cover. He lets out a triumphant laugh. His insane plan to use the robot as bait actually worked. But his celebration is cut short as his eyes widen in horror, sensing a presence directly behind him. Before he can react, a glowing blue blade erupts from his chest. He looks down in stunned silence, unable to understand what just happened. The shock and agony contort his face as the reality of the fatal wound sets in. The owner of the cybernetic arm holding the blade simply calls him a bastard. Behind him stands a new foe, a heavily augmented cyberpsycho leader, who had completely bypassed the chaos and gone straight for the real target. The cyberpsycho leader looks down on him with a cruel smile, mocking him as a nasty bug. Fueled by pure rage, Sun Jieke screams and unleashes a full blast from his assault rifle at point-blank range. The energy shot barrels towards the enemy, a desperate last stand. But in a flash, the Cyberpsycho leader's blade slices through not only the energy blast, but the rifle itself, leaving Sun Jieke defenseless and staring at his own doom. With his weapon gone and a fatal wound in his chest, a single, terrifying thought crosses Sun Jieke's mind as he stares up at his killer. Am I going to die? Sun Jieke stared in disbelief as his own hand, shredded and bloody, began to glitch and dissolve. The gun he was holding moments ago disintegrated into pieces before his very eyes. As his vision blurred and consciousness faded, a single terrifying thought echoed in his mind. Am I dying? But before he could even hit the ground, a towering threat still loomed over him, dragging an energy blade that tore through the rubble. The enemy cyborg boss, gripping his glowing energy sword, lunged forward with pure bloodlust to finish him off. Just as he was about to feast on his prey, the bald cyberthug Chloe was left completely dumbfounded, his eyes bugging out at the sudden turn of events. Suddenly, Jieke's AI companion, Tapai, materialized to protect him, grabbing him and returning fire at the enemy. Tapai's counterattack sent the assassin staggering back, surprised by the sudden intervention. The battle was over in a flash. Chloe shrieked in some incomprehensible language as his body violently glitched out, evaporating from existence until he was completely erased. With the immediate threat gone, Tapai turned its full attention back to the critically wounded Jieke. Lying on the ground, Jieke's life was fading fast. A system alert confirmed the worst. He was in hypovolemic shock from blood loss, and once again he questioned if this was the end. Tapai quickly got to work. It announced that the bleeding was stopped for now, but the urgent priority was a blood transfusion. Scanning the battlefield, it immediately found a successful match from a nearby body. Standing over Jieke's fallen form, Tapai prepared to begin the emergency procedure. The AI gave a quick status report. Suturing was complete, and it was now ready to begin the blood transfusion, having also secured stimulants to keep him stable. Just then, one of the bodies on the ground stirred. The man, barely clinging to life, cried out that he wasn't dead yet. Tapai didn't hesitate. A swift, brutal crush silenced the man's pleas for good. Then, in a darkly comedic tone, the AI declared him officially dead, its job done. Jieke could only watch in wide-eyed horror, letting out a scream at the AI's ruthless pragmatism. A moment later, he sat up with a jolt, cursing as the stimulants Tapai injected coursed through him. Helping him to his feet, Tapai warned that they had to move. It didn't have anti-infection medicine, and Jieke's wounds had been drenched in toxic acid rain. Without a real doctor, he wouldn't last long. But as they were about to leave, Jieke suddenly stopped. An idea sparked as he looked over at the body of another fallen soldier lying in the rain. His eyes fixed on the man's golden prosthetic arm. With his own hand destroyed, he asked Tapai a desperate, shocking question. Could that limb be installed on him? Tapai issued a grave warning. Installing second-hand, mismatched prosthetics was a one-way ticket to losing one's humanity. It would lead to cognitive bias, emotional instability, and ultimately, a complete mental breakdown known as cyberpsychosis. But Jieke's resolve was firm. Survival was the only thing that mattered. Seeing his determination, Tapai relented, simply saying, "You're the boss." In what felt like an instant, Tapai announced that the grim procedure was complete. Jieke looked at his new limb. The scavenged golden arm, now fused to his body, came equipped with a deadly-looking blade, and he couldn't help but smile at his newfound power. The guy who just had his arm jacked by the duo started rattling off its specs like he was running a sketchy infomercial. This arm boasts a beastly battery life, a built-in plug-and-play arc blade, and as a sweet bonus, it even comes with auto-aim. Their attention was then drawn to the supposedly dead body, which was now propped up and running a live stream. The man, Song 6 Puss, was in the middle of a sales pitch to his viewers, even offering them a discount code. Seeing a potential threat, Tapai immediately raised its weapon, ready to finish the job. But Jieke stopped it, curious to hear what this bizarre survivor had to say. Noticing he had their attention, Song 6 Puss frantically begged for his life, offering a reward of 30 at coins if they saved him. Tapai's head perked up, displaying an info box explaining that 30 at coins was enough to buy a basic hovering supercar. The offer was clearly tempting. Jieke considered it. They were strangers in this timeline, and money would make survival much easier. Besides, he had already taken the man's arm. He made his decision. He ordered Tapai to get the streamer back on his feet, reasoning that they couldn't afford to carry any dead weight. Tapai scanned him, explaining that a bullet had pierced his heart, and the backup pump keeping him alive was too weak. Song 6 Puss cursed, realizing his implants were cheap black market goods. Jieke impatiently urged the man, whom he called Big Gold Tooth, to get a move on, but Song 6 Puss told him to wait just a moment. The reason for the delay became clear as Song 6 Puss turned to his live audience, announcing his dramatic return from the dead and declaring that the stream would continue. Jieke stared in utter disbelief. A man from the 21st century, he couldn't comprehend the idea of someone live-streaming their own near-death experience for entertainment. Seeing an opportunity, Jieke asked the streamer if he knew anything about a bald man who could turn invisible, marked by an inverted cross below his neck. Song 6 Puss glanced at his stream's chat room and found an answer. His viewers identified the man as Chloe, a small-time boss in the Satan gang who used military-grade mimicry camouflage. Then, in a completely bizarre turn, Song 6 Puss's face lit up as he thanked Chloe for sending a rocket, a large virtual gift, to his stream. Jieke was completely lost, questioning why their enemy would be sending his new acquaintance a gift. The horrifying truth became clear as a real missile streaked towards them from the sky. Song 6 Puss screamed in terror, realizing the rocket wasn't a gift, but a declaration of attack. The rocket slammed into the ground, erupting in a massive explosion that shook the entire area. Thrown by the blast, Jieke managed to find his footing, cursing at the chaos as he armed himself for the coming fight. A holographic image of Chloe flickered to life before them. He mocked Jieke for asking about your father on a stream, taunting him and daring him to seek revenge. The taunts hit their mark. Chloe's face contorted with rage, revealing a glimpse of a skull within his cybernetic frame. Jieke fired his weapon into the air, screaming in frustration. He couldn't believe the absurdity of the situation and demanded they take the fight seriously. He continued to vent his rage, baffled that his enemy was watching live streams and sending actual rockets in the middle of a battle. But Chloe was unfazed, his hologram reappearing to mock him further. He boasted that he could do whatever he wanted, even while fighting. Then, as quickly as he appeared, Chloe vanished again, leaving Jieke stumbling as he tried to pinpoint his location. Jieke scanned the area, his senses on high alert. With Chloe's invisibility, he knew the next attack could come from anywhere. His eyes narrowed. A faint ripple in the rain gave away the enemy's position. He ducked just in time, a shimmering blue blade slicing through the air where his head had been moments before. Chloe reappeared, blade raised for another strike, but Jieke was ready. He threw up his new prosthetic, blocking the attack with a shower of sparks. The block seemed to impress Chloe, who let out a manic laugh, impressed by Jieke's incredible reflexes. The two were locked in a deadly dance, Jieke returning fire, while desperately dodging Chloe's relentless and precise blade attacks. Meanwhile, his mech companion refused to just sit on the sidelines doing jack shit. It vaulted onto Song 6 Puss's back, turning the streamer into a literal walking sentry gun for covering fire, all while screaming its lungs out to draw Chloe's aggro. Meanwhile, Song 6 Puss is literally scared shitless, snot and tears streaming down his face, completely traumatized by just how ruthlessly savage this human-machine duo is. With a final taunt, Chloe's head dissolved into pixels once more. Frustrated, Jieke turned to Tapai and asked if there was any way to counter the mimicry camouflage. Tapai struck a cute pose, explaining that it did have thermal imaging, but per its programming, could only offer to activate it when its user's life was directly threatened. Jieke was furious, asking why Tapai hadn't mentioned it sooner. The AI simply replied that he hadn't asked. Wasting no more time, Tapai called out Chloe's exact position. Following Tapai's direction, Jieke spun and fired without hesitation, unloading his clip at the seemingly empty space. A look of pure shock appeared on Chloe's face as he rematerialized. The invisible armor had been pierced, and a bullet had grazed his head. For the first time, he was vulnerable. With Chloe exposed, it was a free-for-all. Tapai and Song 6 Puss dove in from above, adding to the assault as Jieke continued his attack from the ground. Caught off guard and hit from multiple angles, all Chloe could do was brace for the impact, his face a mask of shock and pain. The AI dude's all-out attack is literally just yeeting Song 6 Puss straight at the villain. Song 6 Puss lets out a high-pitched shriek, throwing a massive tantrum and cursing Tapai out for fighting dirty with absolutely zero honor. As for the shameless Tapai, the dude just flashes a shit-eating grin, drops a blunt "go to hell" and unleashes a devastating energy beam while raining an absolute hail of bullets down on Chloe. Their attacks found their mark. Chloe's cybernetic body was riddled with damage, spikes of shrapnel tearing through his armor. But despite the heavy damage, a twisted, confident grin spread across Chloe's face. He sneered, asking if they really thought that was the extent of his power. He was far from finished. This was only a taste of what he was truly capable of. Fed up with the fight, Chloe decided to end it once and for all. He unleashed his ultimate weapon, firing a projectile from his chest and telling them to taste his EMP. The device detonated, unleashing a massive wave of electromagnetic energy. Tapai short-circuited instantly, and both Song 6 Puss and Jieke were caught in the paralyzing blast. Chloe stood triumphant amidst the crackling energy, laughing maniacally. He gloated that his military-grade EMP would turn them all to scrap metal. But his laughter was cut short as a blade suddenly burst through his chest. He looked down in utter disbelief. Standing before him, completely unaffected by the EMP, was Jieke, who had plunged his new blade deep into Chloe's core. Grabbing Jieke, Chloe screamed that it was impossible. No one could withstand his EMP. The blast should have fried any and all nervous system components, leaving Jieke a vegetable. With a powerful tug, Jieke ripped the blade free, severing Chloe's last hope. As Chloe collapsed, Jieke stared down at him with cold, empty eyes and revealed the impossible truth. He had no system to be fried. He was a glitch in their cybernetic world. A strange frenzy took over Jieke. He jumped on the fallen Chloe, stabbing him again and again, driven by a primal urge to destroy. With each strike, a disturbing sense of satisfaction washed over him, the act feeling terrifyingly familiar and good. Finally, the frenzy subsided. Jieke stood up, panting and covered in blood. He recalled Chloe's earlier taunt, disturbed by his own actions. He looked at his new, blood-soaked hand, a sense of grim finality washing over him. A chilling thought crossed his mind. He wondered why killing felt so natural, so smooth, as if it was something he had done thousands of times before. Standing amidst the carnage, Jieke wondered why the painkillers weren't working. The pain was still overwhelming. As Tapai and Song 6 Puss walk up, the AI sidekick drops a brutal truth bomb. The painkillers aren't to blame here. Jieke's body has simply taken way too much damage and has hit its absolute damn limit. A moment later, Song 6 Puss was already back to his cheerful streamer persona, announcing to his viewers that he was back after dying for a bit, and that the stream would continue. He laughed off the fact that his heart had been pierced, boasting that he had survived the disaster and was fine now. He then launched into a sales pitch for his new prosthetics, bragging to his viewers while Jieke and Tapai looked on in absolute bewilderment. Jieke had finally had enough. He ordered Song 6 Puss to turn off the stream. Surprisingly, the streamer simply shrugged and agreed. With the stream off, Song 6 Puss gestured to the wreckage around them and said, "You guys call the shots." But the brief moment of calm was shattered by a deafening noise from above, causing Jieke to look up in alarm. Massive spotlights cut through the rain, illuminating the battlefield as a new, immense presence made itself known. Jieke could only stare up in shock, wondering what new threat had arrived. Drones descended from a colossal ship, announcing that the area was Gaifeng Technology Company territory. The group was identified as illegal intruders and given a chilling ultimatum: leave within 1 minute or face execution under the company's self-defense protocol. A 60-second countdown began. Panic erupted as other scavengers hiding in the debris made a desperate run for it, only to be ruthlessly gunned down by the corporate drones. Jieke was still trying to process the insanity of the situation as the deadly countdown continued. Song 6 Puss grabbed him, screaming at him to snap out of it and run for his life. But there was nowhere to run. The drones swarmed the sky, the countdown continuing relentlessly. 33 seconds. Jieke took a heavy step, his body screaming in protest. He was completely exhausted, his injuries finally catching up to him. He couldn't go on. 3 seconds, the bleeding from his shoulder worsened. 2 seconds, his body had given out completely. All Jieke could do was watch, his face a mask of grim acceptance as the timer continued its inexorable fall. 1. The world was plunged into a threatening red light as the final number flashed. The automated judgment had been passed. Time was up. As the countdown ended, a drone announced that according to corporate law, they were trespassing on private property, and the company would now begin unlimited liability self-defense. The drone's optical sensor glowed red, its weapons locking on, ready to execute. Jieke gritted his teeth, refusing to die without a fight. With a final, defiant scream, he unleashed a volley of fire at the corporate machines. But it was hopeless. He was surrounded. Despair began to set in as he realized there was no escape. All around them, the drone's cannons charged up, preparing to unleash a final, deadly barrage. Even Tapai's calculations offered no hope, its screen flashing a grim prognosis. Survival rate 0%. But just as the drones were about to fire, a figure stepped in front of Jieke. It was Song 6 Puss. He stood before the entire drone swarm, raised his hand, and yelled at the top of his lungs, "I have money." Jieke and Tapai could only stare, completely baffled by this bizarre turn of events. With a dramatic flourish, Song 6 Puss pulled out a credit card, declaring that he was buying them time and complaining that he always had to be the hero. A drone immediately flew down to scan the card, its robotic voice announcing that the transaction was successful. The kill order was cancelled. The drone politely instructed the paid user to leave within the stipulated time. Song 6 Puss turned to the others and told them to hurry. He had only bought them 3 minutes. Jieke stared in disbelief, unable to process what had just happened. He asked, "Just giving them money works?" He looked at the bodies of the other scavengers who had been mercilessly gunned down and asked why the drones didn't do the same for them. Song 6 Puss gave a chillingly simple answer, "Because they don't have money." He again urged Jieke to get a move on. Jieke's mind reeled as he looked at the fallen. He asked himself a horrifying question. If you don't have money, you deserve to die. Stepping over a mangled corpse, the brutal logic of this new world hit him. Yes, in this time, if you don't have money, you deserve to die. A wave of fury and disgust washed over him. He clenched his fist, cursing the cruel reality he found himself in. He slammed his fist into the ground, his knuckles cracking against the rubble, overcome with rage at this dystopian nightmare. His rage spent, a single thought echoed in his mind. At least for now, they had escaped. The moment was short-lived, as Song 6 Puss immediately turned his stream back on. He hyped up the thrilling battle for his audience, then complained about how much money he had to spend, begging his viewers for tips. Jieke gets right in his face, demanding to know why the hell he didn't just call for a medic earlier. The streamer looks completely dumbfounded for a second before pointing out the glaringly obvious. They were smack in the middle of a massive firefight, and not a single damn service would be crazy enough to fly in and bag their corpses. As their transport arrived, Song 6 Puss explained the final, harsh lesson of this world. Treatment centers are businesses designed to make a profit, not to save lives. They would never take on a losing venture like flying into a war zone. The last thing Jieke saw was the sterile ceiling of a surgical room. Masked figures with glowing green visors looked down at him, their voices announcing that the area was secure and the rescue could now commence. He had escaped the gang and the drones, only to end up on the operating table of another corporation.